Okay, I've initiated the record. We'll put that up in the announcement section too, in case there are any concerns. So I guess, folks, today, what I want to do is just introduce you to the wonderful world of critical reasoning, sometimes referred to as critical thinking, essentially the same thing. And if you do have questions, you should be able to unmute your microphone, or at the very least, as most people prefer, type a message in the chat area. And if I can successfully multitask, I will be able to try to answer your questions in a due fashion. So let's go ahead and go through this a little bit. I won't take too much of your time here, but I do want to make sure that we are actually able to define what we're going to be dealing with throughout the rest of the semester. So we're going to start with a real critical thinking thing to do, and that is try to define our terms. This is a little bit of a song and dance, actually, for the critical thinking or critical reasoning. You probably already know that it's a fairly important skill to have. And my purpose here is just to reemphasize how important many of us think the study of critical reasoning is. It certainly can help you with your job. I personally believe it can help you with certain kinds of things that crop up in your life that may not be related to your job. Studying critical thinking helps us to understand a little bit more about our own particular thought processes. And I think it's vital for us to understand things that we might not be consciously aware of in terms of the way we think or the way we make claims. The term claim is a very important word in logic and critical reasoning courses. We all make claims. Sometimes we express them as our beliefs. We say, well, I believe that such and such is the case. I believe that there are, my favorite subject, by the way, extraterrestrials. And of course, I don't necessarily personally believe in extraterrestrials, but let's say somebody makes the claim, I believe that there are extraterrestrials that have visited or are on the Earth right now. That's a claim. And so in critical thinking, when somebody makes a claim like that, what we want them to do is to provide justification. You know, is there justification for believing in extraterrestrials? And somebody put a little extraterrestrial being. I think that's Nia. But I am skeptical, and I won't go into any more detail about that. But if somebody provides me what I would regard from a critical thinking point of view as really good evidence, then of course I'm going to look at that. So I am skeptical, but I try to remain open-minded. And to some extent, that is a function of studying critical thinking, I think. Critical thinking by many employers, actually, in some research that has been conducted over time, is considered to be the so-called #1 skill. And I suspect that more and more people are going to find that critical thinking or critical reasoning are not just buzzwords. That when people study how it is that they put the world together, how it is that they form their beliefs and make their claims, that becomes a very important aspect of how it is that we can arrive at something that really is credible. Call it the truth, if you will. A way in which we can acquire more knowledge, possibly with greater certainty. So one way to characterize critical thinking, believe me, there's a lot of definitions, but this is, I think, a fairly reasonable one. Being reflective, focusing on what you believe, focusing on what you're doing. And one of the more important aspects of it, I really do believe, is that we take charge of what we think. We don't just let beliefs happen to us. I've often thought that, and I'm, not saying that I'm not susceptible to some things myself, but sometimes we kind of catch a belief like we're catching a little cold. We just have this belief and we don't think too much about where it came from, why we have it, or why other people have a certain belief. And let's face it, sometimes when you ask a person why they believe what they believe, they might get a little bit upset. In critical thinking, we use argumentation, but we don't mean by that term what you typically think of when you think of an argument. When you think about somebody arguing with somebody else, they get in a heated moment. Sometimes they get very frustrated. But for critical reasoning, we actually use the term argument to mean an exchange of claims in which we try to provide reasonable justification for what we believe. And that is taking charge of your thinking to a large extent. Why do I think the way I think? Take a deep breath. I'm having an afternoon cup of coffee. And think about what it is that you believe and why. And sometimes that can be a very big challenge. So I picked up this nice little idea from somebody I was talking to, where maybe another way of looking at critical thinking is, like, if some of you we probably haven't done it much over the past year, but when you go shopping, maybe you're going to try on a pair of pants or some other article of clothing. And maybe you're taking just a really good look at it to see if it fits, to see if you like the color of it. And quite possibly there is the so-called three-sided mirror somewhere in the changing room. And you're looking at various different angles. And, many people spend a lot of time doing that. And they should, to get a good feel for whether or not they like the article of clothing that they've chosen. The point being that you look at it from different angles. And that's essentially what we want to do when we're talking about a certain claim that somebody is advancing, or some belief that we have. We want to look at it from a variety of different angles. And then base our choice on what we perceive to be the desirability of that article of clothing. Well, just imagine taking a claim or belief and subjecting it to this, mirror, 3-panel mirror, looking at it from a variety of different angles. It takes time. It really does take some time. You have to invest yourself in the process authentically to do that. And of course, I'm getting back now to real world situations a little bit. We all know that technology is changing our lives radically. Probably everywhere you go, whatever you do, you're exposed to some form of computerized technology. I'm pretty sure that most of us are still using Twitter, still using Google, Wikipedia, and probably having been asked by our bosses, our employers, to learn new methods of doing things. And critical thinking can be extremely important there, because it allows you to be able to sit back and really grasp, all the perspectives involved in what you're going to be asked to do or learn. And that is something that I think is worth noting. It seems like when people have been polled, particularly employers, on what they expect of somebody that they're hiring, they'd like them to be able to think. At the same time, I have to say, a lot of critical thinking might get you into some trouble at times. Asking a lot of questions is something that becomes a nuisance to some people. And of course, we'll talk about it later. Socrates, the famous philosopher, 2,400 years ago, got into trouble for probably being one of the first identifiable critical thinkers. There have been many others from other cultures and other parts of the world, of course, who have engaged in critical thinking. But ultimately, it allows you to be able to come to grips with why you think the way you think and how something works. How a certain kind of technology functions. How is it supposed to be applied in a workplace? And it is a skill. Maybe some of us are born critical thinkers, but basically it's one of those things that you acquire and you learn how to do. And it's a little harder sometimes than you might think, but not super hard, really. It's a little hard work. You have to invest time, but it's not super hard. And we can always put ourselves in a position in which we can better our thinking patterns. And our course is about doing that. Our course is about learning about fallacies, about learning about how to construct arguments in the sense in which I tried to outline previously. How do you construct an argument? You make a claim and you try to support it with good reasons. And you try to put those reasons together in order to justify that claim. And myself and all of us can continue to try to improve. And the more we think about it, the more we kind of write about it, make notes to ourselves, in all likelihood, we're going to become better and better at it. And what this means is we'll in all likelihood make better decisions. I won't dwell on this presentation nor this graphic too much. It'll all be up in your Blackboard class today for review, if you see fit to do that. But critical thinking is really about cooperating with people as much as it is figuring out why people think the way they think. You try to inform yourself about a certain matter, describe that to yourself, explore it. If you're talking to somebody else in a dialogue, which is what philosophy is all about, dialogue, then you negotiate with other people, you exchange your views. And then it's almost like the scientific method when you carry it out to its fullest, testing what you believe, and if necessary, being open to revision, trying to open yourself up to the fact that you could be wrong. It's hard to admit sometimes that you're wrong. I sometimes have that problem. I do. I think maybe I'm just so right about this. I've studied it, and then somebody will mention something that pretty puts a wrench in the works. And I look and I think, you might be right. I made a mistake. Or I don't really have the full picture. That's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process. And of course, if you're talking about the real world, then the product of your critical thinking reflections is applying it to the real world, to what you do, to how you live. To go over this just really briefly, part of critical thinking consists in clarification. What do you need to know? What kind of information do you have in order to make a judgment about something? And then you take a look at the issue a little bit more closely. Now, I'm kind of building you up for the end of the course because 2 weeks before the end of the course, a paper, a nice critical thinking paper will be due, which I just know you'll enjoy doing. It can mostly be on the subject of your choice. And I have all sorts of information about how to successfully complete a paper like that. But, how it's related to your paper, well, you clarify, and then you look a little bit more deeply into what you think you want to, let's say, prove. And then you seek out information. Of course, there are all sorts of ways of doing that. The library is probably the best place to go. The internet, not so sure anymore. There are really good resources on the internet. and you just have to be aware of which ones are fairly credible. I guess the term we'd use is vetted. Vetted resources that have give you some assurance that the information provided there has been deemed appropriate by people who would presumably be in the know about something. And we'll talk a little bit more about that kind of thing. It's an interesting subject, how we get information that we're exploring for on the internet. Some of it's very good. Some of it, is a little questionable. If you're actually having a dialogue with somebody or having some kind of a group session and you're trying to jointly discover some truths, well, you have to consider different perspectives. And for philosophy, we call it dialogue, not just discussion, but dialogue. What do you do in a dialogue? Well, it's like a conversation, except that what you do is you agree to exchange views and discuss each other's views, point out the pros and cons, and, kind of take a scientific approach. If you're really serious about trying to arrive at a good conclusion or trying to get greater insight into what is the truth. The one thing that most of us really don't do is go back over what we think we believe, a claim that we've made, take a look at the evidence again, take a look at different ideas, try to see if the one that we've come up with actually has good merit. And this is really key. It's critical not only in critical reasoning or thinking, but it's critical also in what we call sometimes the scientific method. After you have arrived at a certain conclusion about what you should do or what you should think or what a course of action should be, then you try to apply it, integrate it into some routine. You can see if you look at critical thinking or reasoning from this point of view, then you can see why employers, when they have been asked about the kinds of characteristics they would like to see in an employee, you can see why they think that this is a good thing. Employees that can make a contribution to the overall functioning of a unit or a business or a corporation. I think employers generally are receptive to ideas that can help the business flow and mature and profit, make a little bit more money. And also, if it's a service, provide a useful service to their clients and customers. You'll have a chance to look this over again. This is just a graphic that pretty much puts it into perspective. And insofar as that is the case, I think it's worth a look. And if the recording turns out well, you'll be able to see it again. I'll put the PowerPoint up in its raw form also. So how do you improve critical thinking skills, which I'm sure that you already have? I'm going to be learning a lot from you. You're going to be writing up homework assignments. And since we're on that topic, just remember, every week you've got a discussion forum to respond to, a prompt. You've got a written assignment. And you also have a quiz. And the quizzes should be set for multiple tries. I don't mind if you have your book out in front of you. And in fact, I designed the quizzes so they would just kind of make you dig through your book to try to get the right answers. Just to help you along in terms of reading and, steer you appropriately. So that's how we improve critical thinking skills, is we do a couple of exercises each week. But another way, of course, of kind of drilling yourself on certain kinds of themes and responding to homework assignments and discussion boards is to look for new ideas. This is how we can actually better our thinking skills and hopefully get a clearer view of what we're trying to accomplish when we're trying to assess the truth of something. Read books, of course. Library is still, I think, one of the best places to go if you can go there. An online library like we have at Cal State Dominguez Hills, excellent. As a student, I'm pretty sure you have full access to the periodicals. Talking to another person to brainstorm your ideas is a wonderful thing to do. And possibly even being creatively different. What does it mean to be open-minded? What does that really mean? I frankly think it's a little bit more difficult than we sometimes think it is. We have powerfully persuasive influences in our lives from our community, our family, from the internet, and elsewhere. And sometimes we settle on certain beliefs. And I think oftentimes we find ourselves a little bit afraid, really, of examining a belief to the fullest degree we can. In life, when you're working on a project or being asked by a supervisor, let's say, to do some kind of a job, it's not a bad idea to stand back and say, how could I do this a little better? Is there some better thing I can do? And I would say that probably a good many new inventions have arisen in the past because somebody stood back and said, how can I do this better? Could we do a better job? And I think what you're going to discover, at least that's my opinion, is that a good deal of what we have that doesn't go well in our culture is perhaps because somebody didn't ask that magic question, how could we do it better? Could we have brainstormed a little bit better? Do we have some rigid sorts of forms of thought that we just don't think about changing? Or maybe we're just a little bit afraid. So being open-minded is being receptive to the idea that maybe we need to change. And then again, maybe we find out we don't, but we might also find out we do need to change. How could we be better? How could my thinking processes be better? Also, being curious. I do think that what philosophers sometimes say about what philosophy really is, and this is, after all, a philosophy class, philosophy is about the art of wondering, which is to say we wonder about things like a child does, If you've been around children a lot, and of course you were around yourself a lot when you were a child, you probably remember asking your parents questions that maybe at some point in time, could be a relative, an uncle, a brother. You might have been a nuisance. I know I was a nuisance. When we're kids, we're probably sometimes a nuisance to people because we always say, why is that? Why does that happen? How come that's so? And, it's surprising, having raised my own kid who was that way, that sometimes, he'd ask questions that if I were really honest, I was not able to answer them. I had to look it up. I had to study it. I had to sit back and say, hey, you've asked a really good question. And let's go find the answer together. And I think at least that's a form of honesty. If you really don't know the answer to a question, why fake it? Why make it up? Sometimes that can be entertaining, but at the same time, it kind of does a disservice to the pursuit of further clarification, understanding, and knowledge. Why don't we just open our minds up to the question of why? And we certainly do owe it to ourselves as human beings to try to give an honest approach to that. Why do people think the way they do? Why is the world the way it is? Why is the economy the way it is? Why do people engage in violent conflict? Why is that? Many people do. Why do some people, including oneself, maybe find it a little difficult to change one's mind? But critical thinking is really a good deal about answering the question, why, by using certain tools and techniques, which we hope will give you, all of us, better results. Reflecting. There's really nothing. You might probably be doing it right now, for all I know. Daydreaming is possible. Daydreaming has gotten a bad rap, but that doesn't have to be that bad. Sometimes a daydream, there's psychologists who have offered this view that sometimes people who daydream solve certain kinds of problems. You could be daydreaming, of course, about going fishing or going hiking or going on a run or, being with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever else, or possibly daydreaming about, getting a new job. But you could also use daydreaming in a very positive way. And that is figuring out certain kinds of solutions to problems and scenarios. Being somewhat imaginative. So critical reasoning, critical thinking isn't just about logic. It is largely about logic, but it's also about creativity. Being somewhat imaginative. Understanding the place of emotion and intuition. I think the author of your textbook actually does a pretty good job trying to factor in the place of intuition and emotion into overall critical reasoning skills. So I hope when you get to that chapter, you'll see that it's very important that we recognize how human beings are constructed. We do have reasoning capabilities. We have imaginative capabilities. We have intuitive capabilities. And all of those should be brought to bear when we're trying to find solutions or trying to understand somebody's claim or belief or trying to solve a problem. And of course, there are all sorts of ways to try to help you reflect and use your imagination. And one of them is to find a good place to do it. If you're like me, and you may somewhat be like me, because I'm like many people in this respect, I have a lot going on when I look at the computer. I've got these news feeds, right? Little video popping up from CNN, advertisements coming out of the woodwork, rather annoyingly sometimes. And, you've got all this information going on. And sometimes people think that they can interpret it all simultaneously, but I think that the research has shown that nobody is a terribly good multitasker, really. So in addition to what you have in front of your computer, possibly going to Amazon, buying something, you might have something else set over here, a book or a newspaper. Nobody reads newspapers anymore. Or something going on, maybe with your dogs. And, there's all sorts of things that can distract us all. Finding the right way of being able to have a little bit of solitude, kind of filter out some of the noise, it is, if possible, a really good way to help improve one's ability to be able to clarify things. How can you clarify for yourself the belief that you have or somebody else is posed to you or some claim that is made? So you surely have your own solutions to that. But the more I talk to students and other people I know, I realize that, when you're carrying your phone around, and I'm not trying, by the way, to diss or badmouth technology, but, most of us have our phones right with us. Not all, but most of us. We know that by research. And that's okay. You need to communicate. You need to have a connection. But at the same time, sometimes those kinds of things can be a little distractive. We all have to work out how we can maybe get beyond the noise and the distraction to kind of get that clear spot where we can think. Focus, extremely important. And this is roughly what you might say people who have become good critical thinkers look like. They figure out what the relevant information is. They try to ask the right questions. They realize that there is a distinction between fact and opinion and assumption. We do have some criteria for that, and your textbook will lay that out pretty clearly. Making decisions based upon, reasonable thought processes. And then, when the time has come, try to apply to new situations. Critical thinking can help you with problem solving. It is not identical to problem solving. It's kind of like the prelude to problem solving. Doing some critical thinking will help you solve your problems, probably. The thing about critical thinking or reasoning is that we intentionally try to look at the processes involved in how we think. And we intentionally try to take a look at the circumstances. And when we get down to problem solving, it generally concerns a specific situation that you're applying your critical thinking skills to. Critical thinking is a general approach to thinking, reflective, metacognitive, as they say, and then we apply it to specific problems. So, before we leave, I have a little problem. You don't necessarily have to solve it now. Has any of you ever seen the 9-dot problem? Do you know how to solve it? But you've seen it. Some of you've seen it. Here's what good, that's good. These are great responses, guys. These are great responses. Okay, there's a lesson to be learned in what is called the 9-dot problem. And the first thing I want to really clear up is this is in no way, if the solution kind of evades you, you're not supposed to get it the first time around. But one of the interesting things that I do find is that, and I was there myself, I first finally got the solution to this problem when it was introduced to me years ago. And then I realized why I didn't get it a little sooner than I did. And then probably a couple of years went by, and then I remembered the problem, but I forgot what the solution was, and that can happen. So I'll give you the instruction, let you take a look at it a little bit. This is just fun. And remember, you're all getting credit for attending this session. Isn't that good? That goes into your attendance grade. I'll let you take a look at this for a moment. And I will give you the instructions. Now, if you want to try this right now, great. I'm all for that. But here's a time to focus. So if you need a pencil or a piece of paper, I could have some of you get on there and draw lines too. It does become a little messy. So I think I'll skip that for the moment. The idea is you want to draw 4 straight lines connecting all of the dots. I sometimes think if you think of just one line with a bunch of different angles, if you're doing it on paper, the instruction traditionally was, before the wonderful age of computers, was to, draw the line, don't lift your pencil or pen from the paper. I'm giving it away. I almost gave the solution away to you just now in my gestures. So, but I think part of this challenge here is to follow the instructions. That's all. Just simple. 4 straight lines connecting all of the dots. And only 4 lines, and all the dots must be connected. So no curved lines. And you can't go back over a line. If you're connecting 3 dots and then you think, I'm going to go back there and connect those, you can't do that. That's all. So now, for some of you who said, I didn't see everybody's message there in the chat room, but some of you've seen this. Yeah, Lisa, that's correct. Any of you think you actually know what the answer is? And don't look it up. Don't you dare look it up. I have no control over you doing that. But, just for the sake of playing the game, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, okay? I'm not going to make you do anything at all. Just let me know if you think you know what the solution is to this. If I had some with me, I'd play some Jeopardy music. I'm not going to become the new host of Jeopardy, I'm sure of that. But, do. If you think you know, just say that, I'm not going to make you perform before everybody. Try to resist the temptation to go somewhere like on Wikipedia. All right, Lisa, good. Let's all be honest now. Okay, good. Let's work on it a little bit. You let me know if you want to see the result. If you want to see how it's supposed to be solved. When you see the solution, I'm pretty sure you're going to say, oh, really? Yeah, and remember, I know it's a little difficult. It's the only thing to do here, just like a lubricant for our thinking. Now, I'm going to give you a clue if you're having a little bit of issues with it. Thinking outside the box. Right? With that, if I understand, is it Hyro? Is that the best way to pronounce your name, Hyro? Or Gyro? Sorry.
Either way is fine, Professor.
Okay. It's, if I understand correctly, you don't need to, okay, it's outside the box. Let me just stay there. I don't want to say too much. Good audio, by the way. Anybody? A little bit more time. I don't want to waste your time. Okay, that's clever. That's very clever, Alyssa. But think about how that is. So if you make a little star, there's just a yeah, we'll see how whether or not that works. And Kevin, you just drew a K. You did an arrow-like figure. Okay, I think, guys, I'm going to let you take just another minute. That last entry is pretty darn much of a clue. So now the question is, folks, a little bit more time here. Do you want to see how you're supposed to solve it? And why we'd even do this? Probably even a better question. Did you think that doing an arrow-like figure, do you think that it was helpful to say that you should think outside the box on that one? All righty. Okay. So I hope you didn't get bored with this and start shopping on Amazon just yet. But anybody else think they got it? All right. All right. I guess I'm going to go ahead. You know, this is not a bad little thing, by the way, to play with in a right context. If you have nieces, nephews, or somebody else. You know, kids ask a lot of questions like why, but sometimes they think they're really smart. And so, and they are, of course, but it's okay. If you're so smart, do this. Go ahead, do this. You could have some good dialogue about it. I used to do it with my own son, who really didn't like me that much for doing it, but we had good conversations about it. So here it comes. Are you ready? You guys ready? Are you there? Are you with me? Are you guys with me? Do you want to see the results?
Yes.
Okay, here's one. And I'm going to challenge you to come up with another one. But here's one. If everything's working properly, which it doesn't seem to, there we go. Now, again, I'm not putting anybody in a spot. You don't have to answer this, but did any of you kind of come up with this sort of solution? Yeah, that's a great response. It's okay if it's in a different direction. It's fine. There's another configuration out there that accommodates the rules. And it's okay if most people do not get this the first time around. They don't. And even the second or third time around, people forget. And it looks so easy, doesn't it? But that's why I wanted to drop a clue on you about thinking outside the box, which, of course, everybody has heard that expression for a long time, I'm sure, to the point where it maybe doesn't even have that much meaning anymore. But what I like about thinking outside the box is this is almost literally a case in which you can solve a problem by thinking out alternatives. And the whole only point on this is you're following the directions, right? 4 straight lines connecting all the dots. And it's pretty straightforward when you finally see it. But you do realize you have to go outside the boundaries to solve the problem. So this is one. So, you know, think about it and let me know if you come up with a different solution that fits the description of what you're supposed to do. I know of another one. And it's similar, but different. And it also involves thinking outside the box. So that's the only reason I have for sharing this little fun, I hope you found it fun and not too frustrating, little problem. it does force you to think in a different way. And it does, if you allow yourself the liberty, the freedom to think about alternative solutions that might not have come up the first time around. Part of the issue I think in general all of us have is that, we frame our thinking in terms of a rather fixed approach, a rather fixed way of doing things. I'm no different than that. I have a kind of a fixed routine for doing certain kinds of chores. And I sometimes find that, by the way, when, I'm trying to do a do-it-yourself thing and fix some item I have in my house, some appliance. I don't always succeed, to be honest with you. And of course, that's why we have people who are paid to do that. But sometimes these things even stymie the professionals. I've had that happen a couple of times with things that, for some reason, the standard procedures that you utilize in order to fix something don't seem to work. They're just not being effective. And after a while, maybe it takes a long while, you sort of sit and think about it. And you think, I'm going to try something that nobody has suggested before that I know of and see if it's going to work. And sometimes it does. But sometimes it's not really on the plate, You don't look at that first, or you don't look at the thing that really is the problem because you're looking at all the other problems. And sometimes it's just hard. It takes time. But, I do think that is one of some lessons that you can have when you look at something like this. Why did it work the way it did? Okay, so now you have a solution, and maybe that's at least one good thing that you can extract from this little mini presentation. I'll be putting up in the announcements section, as long as everybody's pretty much happy with the idea, that Tuesdays will be available to you so we can discuss further things like how to write a paper, how to come up with a really good answer to an assignment, or at least a well thought out one. But I do want to propose to, in your discussion groups, you will have some opportunities to be able to interact with each other. A significant amount of your course is about interacting with each other in the discussion forums. I have rubrics for that, but we'll discuss some of those at these times. So Tuesday will become the office hour, and you will be at liberty to come on in, and if you want to, make any kind of contribution, suggest a different course trajectory, I'm always open to that. I've been doing critical thinking online courses for a long time, and they look a lot alike, although I try to change them. And sometimes when I change them every semester a little bit, sometimes the change doesn't always work that well. Sometimes it does. So I'm receptive to suggestions about what a student thinks should be done better. But all of the learning content pretty much is available to you on demand. And to reiterate, without repeating myself too much, when you go through the each module, so to speak, weekly module, you pretty much see the same pattern. There is a lecture, a narrated lecture. I'm trying to repair some of them. It seems odd to me that after being up on YouTube maybe for 2 years, somehow the audio quality doesn't sound that good. So I'm a little perplexed by why that happens. So I'll figure that one out. But I'm redoing some of them. But basically, I try to give you a presentation, add my own insights to what the textbook is trying to discuss with you. There's an outline that is provided that gives you an idea what's really important in each chapter. The quizzes are basically reading quizzes. They're really a good way to get points, but they're also a good way to help you kind of, make sure that you're reading the material. That's why we have the textbook, so it can help us all along and understand. So one of the other things that I'd like to do for those of you who will join every Tuesday, in your book, there's some really interesting things. And I can't see myself here, so I don't know if you're seeing the book, but it's called Outside the Box, oddly enough, in each chapter. And there's one on that Captain Sully. I don't know if you remember or not. This is some time ago, so you might not. Captain Sullenberger was a pilot, and he flew his plane in a very unusual way. He became a hero to save a bunch of passengers that had just taken off from LaGuardia Airport. And there's some questions. Those are things I'd like to discuss with you synchronously in real time. But again, I want this to work according to your schedule. So I will be here next Tuesday. Why don't you now take some time within the next day or so, go through the class, go through the syllabus. The reason I didn't go over the syllabus here is because you can download that and see pretty much for yourself what's going on. It has all sorts of information if you need to contact tech support or need to contact student services, what the evaluation of the course is. It's pretty much, by the way, straightforward point accumulation. So, the course is worth so many points in terms of the activities and assignments. 90% of that is, an A, et cetera, et cetera. I think you're probably going to want to discuss with me at some point in time, paper, how to write one. And I'll be here for that. So given this slight change of how we're going to be doing the course, is everybody okay with that? Can you either give me a question right now in the chat room before we part company today? Or let me know if, somebody has a question, I'm sorry. Nia, your question?
Hi, I was just gonna ask real quick, is there a reason why on the Zoom little weekly thing, why does it say we have class on Tuesdays and Saturdays?
Okay. I set up the class because the alternative definition was that the idea, I guess, was supposed to be we have some kind of blend of online and synchronous or Zoom sessions. So in the class schedule, it says Tuesday and Thursday, right? Is that what you're referring to now?
Yeah, yes, but on the weekly Zoom schedule, it says we have Zoom on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
Oh, I'll have to go back over that because I thought I just set it up for Tuesdays.
Okay, thank you.
If I didn't, we'll just make it Tuesday. Okay, anybody else have another question?
So classes are only on Tuesday at 2:30, correct?
Right. But I'm making that so that, as I was trying to describe, you don't necessarily have to come.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. There's no homework today, Kevin. The only thing to worry about right now of immediate concern is trying to acquire your textbook. And there is one informal discussion introduction where you, by Friday, get in and tell people a little bit about yourself, some fun thing about yourself, share something. So those are the first two things. Get your textbook and then go into the discussion area of Blackboard and take a look at what's going on there. The first one is fun. You'll get, I'm sure, just by participating, sharing something about yourself, whatever you want to, with other people, possibly what your academic goals are, things like that. That's Friday. Everything else is always going to be due on Mondays. So if you look at the assignment schedule, you'll see that you should be reading chapter 1 as soon as you can. And then there'll be another discussion forum on Monday. Does that make sense, Kevin? Or anybody? Does that all make sense? Okay. All right. Are you all going to stick with me for this wonderful semester we're looking forward to here, guys? The reason I'm asking is that it's important that you get in. I'll take roll today. I don't think some people made it in yet, but I will definitely take roll because I'm required to do that for Friday. So if you get in, log in to that first discussion forum, you'll get full credit for participation, and I will keep you in the course. All right, are we happy, everyone? That's a loaded question. I'm happy to get to know you.
Oh, Professor, so you know how you said you're gonna make Tuesdays like you don't have to come, so we wouldn't get points knocked down if we didn't show up for class?
No, you will not get points knocked down. No.
Okay, so the only points that we'll get is from our assignments?
You get participation credit for the group. Yeah, basically that's right. Yes.
And then we have 3 assignments every week, right, that are due on Mondays?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
All right. Those are very good questions, and he cleared it up. You basically have 3 assignments due every Monday. Bottom line. Okay. Well, I look forward to associating with you further. I'm hoping that some of you will take advantage of the office hour. I'm going to make myself available. I believe that this is the correct interpretation now of what we are supposed to do. It's a slight, not even mid-course change because we haven't really gotten on course yet. But I believe it's going to work out for everybody and suit your schedule. But again, as Andy was mentioning, you basically have 3 assignments due every Monday. Group discussion, quiz, written assignment, in addition to reading the textbook. And I have to tell you, one of the things I like about this textbook is I think it's very practical. And you can fit it into your life and other subjects you're taking very well. Okay, I guess I'm back to ground zero here. And I wish you well, guys. Don't hesitate to email me. I will post announcements probably about 2 or 3 times a week, just to let you know what's going on. Looks like just about everybody showed up today, guys. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Professor. Too.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor.
All right, guys. Thank you, students. Looking forward to the semester. Take good care.
Have a good one, Professor.
Anybody has any questions, I will hang around a little bit here. Thank you, Vincente. Appreciate it. I might have to get a better lighting next time. Anyway, guys, have a good one. Bye-bye for now.